Hello, my name is Yemi Adedeji. I'm the director of the One People Commission at the Evangelical Alliance, and I welcome you to Give Hope Life. Tonight, we have a special event for church leaders. And we're looking on how you can give hope to your communities through the COVID vaccination. This is part of the Your Neighbors Lent campaign. Over the next 6 weeks, we are traveling to Easter and beyond, exploring how churches are bringing hope to their local community through the COVID recovery and helping churches around the UK to start new projects. If you haven't signed up to join us on this journey to give hope to our communities, please do so at yourneighbors.org. By doing this, you will be registering to receive all kinds of resources to help you and your church give hope throughout this period and in helping them to get the vaccine. And so it's my privilege to welcome my co-host for tonight, Joe Frost, to help us in acknowledging those who have lost their lives during this period.
Hi there, good evening everybody. It is a privilege to be with you. As Yemi just said, we're coming together because this pandemic has profoundly affected and challenged all of us and our communities. And often when we're having these sort of conversations, there can be a degree of a disconnect between what we're facing and what we have been through. So we want to pray as we start this evening, but we also want to take a minute to reflect and to honour those that we have lost on this journey, and for the grief and for the suffering that so many in our community have been affected by. So we'd like to invite you just to take a moment's silence, and then Reverend Yemi is going to lead us in prayer. So have a moment.
And so, Lord, we acknowledge those who have lost their lives during this period of COVID. We pray for the peace of God over their family, and we pray for comfort. And we pray for those who are already in the hospital trying to grasp with their lives, that God, you will heal them. And we pray that our time tonight will be to glorify your name as we receive information that will help us to be what you have called each one of us to be. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Joe. So as we continue tonight, it promises to be an exciting night. Let me first of all tell you, wherever you are watching from, and in UK, some are probably be watching from abroad. If you have any questions at all, don't wait till during the question time. This is the time to start popping those questions in the chat. Maybe something has been bothering you. This is the time to pop those questions in the chat, and we will do that for you. Tonight is also a consultation. It's a chance to hear great content, to ask good questions, and to share your views. With that in mind, we are going to start by taking a poll, and is to get your input on key questions around the church and the vaccine. So right now, to date, a third of UK adults have already had their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. I have had mine. Interesting. And so in a quick straw poll, it will be useful to know who have had their vaccine here and who is yet to, and who is undecided. It's a completely anonymous poll, but useful gauge of where we are as a community. So here is the poll for you now. All you have to do is to answer the question on your screen when it pops up as you have seen it, and then we will give you the result of the poll almost immediately. Okay. Oh, this is Very interesting. Thanks for filling the poll. We'll come back to unpack this result later on. And it's really interesting to see the responses of the people. Very, very interesting. This evening is also an opportunity for you to ask your question, like I've already said, about the role of the church in the rollout of this COVID vaccine. And then also, you can do that by continue to post your question. I cannot overemphasize that you can ask your questions at any time. Now it's time to introduce our first panel as we start the interview for tonight. This run into series is this different segments, but our first segment is a time with our medical doctors. So it's time to welcome our first special guest for tonight. A big welcome to Dr. Bola Owolabi, a GP and who is also Director for Health and Inequalities at the National Health Service England. And of course, Dr. Shola Adiaga, the Chief Operating Officer at Jesus House. Many people know him as Doc. Doc is also a medical doctor. Welcome, the two doctors, Dr. Bola and Dr. Shola Adiaga. Welcome. Great to have you with us tonight. Let us start by my first question to you, Dr. Bola. So really grateful for sparing in a busy time for coming to come and hang out with us tonight. Dr. Bola, tell us how is the vaccine program going, and then where are you encouraged and where are you concerned?
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute delight to be joining you this evening. The COVID vaccination program is going brilliantly well. I think when we look at the rest of the world and where we are in the UK, we can all take a lot of pride in the success of our COVID vaccination program. As you said earlier on, about a third of adults have now been vaccinated, which is incredibly positive to be able to say that. And I want to say a huge thank you to the people who volunteered in the first place to be participants within the testing phase of the COVID vaccination program, because they have made it possible for us to have the vaccine. I also want to thank my colleagues, doctors, scientists, people in logistics, GPs at the front line, all the healthcare professionals, the administrative staff that have made this possible. It really has been a mammoth team effort. And I just want to acknowledge everybody's contribution.
Thank you, Evans. Go on, Dr. Bola, go on.
Having said that, I am very concerned that when you begin to look deeper into the data, you'll find that the uptake in some communities is not what we would like, particularly Black African, Black Caribbean, and also Bangladeshi and Pakistani communities. These are the areas where we do still have work to do in order for us to see the level of uptake that is so important for us to see in order for all communities to be protected.
Thank you very, very so much, Dr. Bola. Now, Dr. Shola Adiaga, I'm going to ask you this question. As someone who is a pastor and a medical doctor, how have you found the last few weeks, and what are the kind of questions and challenges that you found yourself dealing with within the community and as a church leader?
Okay, first of all, thank you again, Dr. Bola. Thanks for having me this evening. And in terms of the question, it's been a very, very interesting last few weeks and even months. I think I'd start by saying my respect for social media has gone up tremendously, because I've suddenly realized how powerful in this instance, in a negative sense, that social media has been, because in talking to people, it's obvious that the information that the issues people have, the information they're getting originated from social media. you know, the proverbial saying where it says bad news travels quicker than good news. So the first challenge is obviously the fact that people have lots of questions, lots of concerns, leading to hesitancy, but realizing that a lot of those have come from unsubstantiated information, largely from social media. So the first thing is that, you know, people have lots of questions, but like I said, the source or the origin of the concerns have been quite suspect. Having said that, we've had loads of conversations, loads of calls from pastors, from members of congregations, friends, and all. And in terms of the challenges that have been presented, I thought it might be easier. I did this for myself just to ensure that one was separating the substance from the chaff, like they say. So in my mind, what I did was divide them into three categories. So the medical issues that, you know, people have had genuine concerns about. Then there obviously the faith stroke religious stroke ethical issues, and then the more extreme myths that people have had issues about. But I think largely most issues are related to medical. And if you wanted me to give you examples, for examples of some of the issues, common themes, common questions people were having was, or concerns were, how come the vaccine was brought to the fore so quickly, the speed of production, a lot of questions about the side effects, both short term and long term. A lot of questions, I'm sure all these questions most of us are aware of. The issue about whether one vaccine would affect one's DNA or not. And then we in the last few weeks, we've been getting quite a lot of questions about which vaccine is better between the Pfizer vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine. And yeah, so those are the kind of questions we're getting. But like I said, it's been largely more information, right information or misinformation, as you would like. And a lot of effort over the last few weeks and months have been geared towards getting the right information to people.
Thank you ever so much. Dr. Bola, I'll come back to you. There are clearly some group who have concerns about the COVID vaccines. What do you think drives this concern, and how should the church leaders respond to this?
So I think there are a range of drivers. There are issues in terms of mistrust in institutions. So whether that is pharmaceutical companies, some people have mistrust of government, um, anything that has organized institution around it, that is a significant part of it. As Dr. Shola was saying, there are a lot of issues and concerns relating to religious belief. So, for example, many people worry that maybe the vaccine contains fetal products or animal products, which I will quickly say none of the vaccines contain any fetal tissue or any animal products. That has been a significant source of concern for many people. There are other extreme concerns, as Dr. Shola was just saying there, in terms of the impact of the vaccine on people's fertility, on their DNA, um, and whether this is a whole conspiracy theory. And I think for the church, particularly, there is another dimension to do with end times concerns, where people have worries about whether this has to do, with the Antichrist and those sorts of things. So I think broadly speaking, the concerns center around mistrust, whether that is mistrust of institutions or mistrust of the vaccines themselves, how they were produced, what they contain, their effect, and also mistrust in terms of the impact of taking the vaccines on them as individuals and what that means for their faith and their beliefs. So at the center of all of this, I would say, is the issue of trust. And so what can church leaders do? I think the first thing is to recognize just how respected faith leaders are. Because these are the people that are there for people at every stage in their lives, when they're joyful, when they're sad, when they're bereaved, when they're in difficulty. Church leaders have very long established relationships of trust with their congregation in a way that very few parts of the community does really. And I think recognizing that crucial position is the first thing, is for church leaders to understand their influence, understand the level of trust reposed in them by their congregations. And on the basis of that recognition, to do two things. One is to be the voices of reassurance to their congregation, offering them credible, validated information. It's important not to dismiss people's concerns. We need to, first of all, acknowledge the concerns. Then we need to offer people reliable information. I would also then say not to spend a lot of time getting stuck in debates, because actually that is counterproductive. What it does is it fuels the misinformation. The second thing broadly that church leaders can do is, having recognized just how powerful they are and the influence they hold, to be really careful what they say, whether it's in the church context or on social media, because people are paying attention and they will believe what their church leaders say. So I think there is something about proactively acknowledging people's concerns, really looking for authentic, reliable information, providing that information in a way that is consistent and that is authentic. And on the other side is by making sure that they are mindful of their utterances and the power of the things they say. And finally, I just want to thank you and the organizers of this event, because this is another way that the church can really play a very important and very powerful role. I think when you bring the voice of faith leaders together with the voices of experts in the field from a medical and scientific point of view, that's a very powerful combination. And that's exactly what you've done in this webinar. So those are the three things that I think church leaders can do. Give the correct information, be mindful of what you say, and create opportunities like this for people to hear the voice of faith leaders and the voice of experts in the field.
Thank you ever so much, Dr. Bola. It's that time of during the program where we have to take questions now from you, audience. You can send in your chat for your questions. But I'm also pleased to say that we're going to add to the number of doctors that can answer the questions for tonight. So we have another doctor here to help us to answer the question. We are also going to be joined by Vanessa Appiah, a consultant physician at St. Bart's Health NHS Trust. Vanessa, thanks for being here with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we have some questions. They are just coming in. There was a question that I have here, which says, is there fetal remains in Vasin, and what are the long-term effects? First of all, let's answer the first one. Is there a fetal remains in the Vasin? Who will take that? I don't mind whoever takes it.
Can I start? And then
please,
Vanessa, if you wanted to.
I was just about to say that you'd already started answering that, actually, so you might as well.
Yeah. Because a couple of the questions here, if you don't mind, just hit the answer straight so that we can then keep it up from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So just to say, there is no fetal tissue or any human products of any type within the vaccines. There is no animal products within it. So I think it's just important because those two tend to come together in terms of the question. So just very straightforwardly, the vaccines do not contain any fetal tissue or human tissue of any other description, and they do not contain any animal product.
Okay, can I just take it further? A question that my daughter asked me, which is from this the leaflets they give to you after taking the vaccine from AstraZeneca. It says this: the content of the AstraZeneca contains recombinant replication deficient chimpanzee adenovirus vector encoding the SARS-CoV-2 spike glycoprotein produced in genetically modified human embryonic kidney cells. I mean, she read that. She said to me that this thing contains human embryonic kidney cells. Are they telling us lies? But not be lies, I don't know. But we would like to answer that.
I mean, I can add on to Dr. Bolla, but I think the key thing is actually Dr. Bolla said there's no fetal tissue within the vaccines. Now, in some of the paperwork, when you're testing vaccines, you can use different cells and cell lines, but these are grown within the laboratory. And these are not human tissue at all, but they are cell lines which are grown in the laboratory, and it's very different. So I think that's a really important distinction to make. There is no fetal tissue within the vaccines.
Okay, Dr. Adeaga, I might come to you on this. Does vaccine cause infertility?
No, absolutely not. You wanted a straight and sharp answer, and the answer is absolutely not. First of all, from a medical point of view, there isn't even any medical reason or method how they can cause infertility. I'm not sure whether you want me to go into that, but the straight answer is that no, that it does not in any way cause infertility.
Okay, let me come back to you, Dr. Bolla. Does the vaccine cause, what are the long-term effects of taking the vaccine?
So as with any other medication and any other vaccines, people can have short-term effects. Like I had a sore arm at the site of the injection when I had my vaccine, but it cleared up within a few hours. Some people may feel a little bit achy. Other people may have, a mild headache, feeling perhaps more tired than usual. But these are all very short-term effects. We haven't seen any data that suggests long-term side effects with the vaccines. The other thing I will add is that we are continuing to gather the data, in order for us to make sure that we are tracking in the medium to longer term any unusual, or longer term side effects. But actually, when you consider that, these vaccines work in pretty much the same way as all the other vaccines that have been with us for years. And those vaccines, by and large, are safe. They protect us, from lots of the diseases that used to wreak havoc in the past. I'm thinking about things like measles, things like pertussis that used to claim so many lives or cause so much misery. Vaccines have made an incredible difference with this. The thing I will also add is this. We don't have any data to suggest that the COVID vaccines cause long-term side effects, but we do know that the COVID-19 infection itself is a deadly infection to have. We also know that there is emerging evidence that for some people, it's causing them something called long COVID syndrome. And there are people who are not able to return to work or return to their normal lives because of the effect of long COVID. So what I would say to people is this: we know the infection itself kills. We know the infection itself causes long-term issues for many people. There is no evidence or
Yeah.
data to suggest that the vaccine against the
Actually,
infection
positive.
has longer term effects.
Thank you ever so much. I'm going to come to you, Vanessa, and then Dr. Adiaga. But here's a question for you, Dr. Vanessa, if I call you Vanessa, if you don't mind. Um, uh, um, is there another way to build your immunity other than this vaccine? So if somebody says, I don't want to take the vaccine, can I build my immunity against COVID?
I think, again, as you said that you wanted quick and firm answers, I have to say no. The vaccines are the best way for your body to generate a response to protect you from COVID-19. Now, I think all of us on here as medics would always say that to enhance your immune system, yes, it's about eating healthily, it's about exercise, it's about looking after yourselves generally. And I always say to my patients, I don't ask you to stop other drinks and things that you're taking to boost your energy, etc. But the key thing is that when we're talking about COVID-19 and definite, safe, and not protection that we know that is effective, vaccines are the key.
Thank you ever so much. And Dr. Doc, what happened when the pastor tells their congregation, don't take it? This is not right. It's got some stuff. How should people deal with it?
Okay, I think I'll just borrow from what Dr. Bola said earlier, which I thought was quite profound, that as pastors, as leaders, we must recognize the influence that we have. I don't want to say over our congregation, but it's actually influence that has developed over years because of trust in the spiritual leadership. But when spiritual leadership now starts to cut across an area where a pastor or leader does not have expert knowledge about it, I think it's very dangerous. I think we mustn't underestimate the effect of, or the impact of feeding wrong information to people that can then cause either morbidity or mortality in the lives of people. And that's exactly what's been happening. So I think I would say to leaders, when I talk about leadership, I always say that the greatest thing about leadership is responsibility. You're responsible for people who have chosen to follow you, and they're following you because they trust you. And we mustn't take that responsibility lightly. In this instance, whilst you might be qualified to give spiritual leadership according to the Bible, a pastor, except you have the knowledge, except you're a doctor, you're not qualified to give medical direction. And I think it's totally out of order to say things categorically like that from the pulpit. On the contrary, what we should be saying, as we have done, and quite a number of other pastors have done, is get information. I might not know the information, but get the appropriate information so you can make an informed choice.
Thank you very much, Doc. Dr. Vanessa, I come back over to you. If you're going to give, because I'm just running up this session, I'm going to give one great advice to anyone who's saying, I'm not sure whether to take this vaccine or to take this vaccine. What would you say?
I would say, please do. I would say that the evidence suggests that this is a safe, effective mode to protect ourselves from COVID-19. COVID-19 has impacted all communities, but particularly our communities in Black and Asian communities so awfully. And the one thing that can make a significant change is vaccines on top of hands, face, and space. So I would just urge them to listen to the data, listen to the accurate information, and then be guided to take the vaccine. But I always say it is individual choice, but that's why we're here today, to give people the right information to make that choice.
Dr. Bola, last word from you. What are you going to be saying to people out there? Take it or don't take it? Or what are the challenges, or what are the benefits?
What I will say is that when you look at the data, the level of death that we've seen in our community is staggering. It's very sobering to see the data. We have lost a huge number of people, whether that is out in the community or within the medical profession. We know that 63% of the people in the health profession who have died from COVID-19 are from Black African, Caribbean, and Asian communities. Just think about that for a moment. And what worries me is if we continue on this road of not taking the vaccine, which, as Dr. Apea has said, is the safest and most effective way of protecting our communities from this dreadful disease. I worry that we will get into summer this year. The overall death rates will have come down, but when you look at the deaths that are occurring, they will then still be in these communities that have already suffered so much. I want people to just think about that. And on the basis of that, please do the right thing. Take the vaccine to protect yourself, protect the people that you care about, protect your community so that you can be around for those who love you, who care about you. And let's just stop this awful death toll in our community. It's not inevitable. We can stop it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bola, and thank you very much, Dr. Vanessa, and thank you very much, Dr. Adiaga. We're going to have Dr. Adiaga back on the platform later on, but I just want to thank you ever so much for taking time to join us tonight, and I hope that those who are loads of questions around, but we can't get through all of them because in a moment I'll be welcoming Nadeem Zahawi, the MP, who is also the government's Vasin minister. But before we come to that, we are going to hear from Pastor Ago Iruku, who is the senior pastor of Jesus House, Redeemed Christian Church of God, who couldn't be with us, but sent us a recorded message for tonight. And then also, Russell Rook, the chair of Your Neighbor, is going to be interviewing Bishop Rose Hudson Wilkin, who was formerly the Speaker's chaplain in Parliament, but now the Bishop of Dover. So before I interview the minister for Vasin, let's hear from Bishop Rose and Pastor Agu over this video.
We're living in very, very challenging times. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected not just us in the United Kingdom, but the entire world. Some of us have lost loved ones, sadly. It has affected our social relationships as we have gone through. We're now in our third lockdown. It has had mental health challenges for quite a number of us. Some of us have been sick and have gone through the pain of dealing with the virus in our bodies. The list goes on and on. It's affected the economy. Small businesses have taken the brunt of it in terms of the economy. It's affected our children not being able to go to school and enjoy the friendships that they have in school. Now, what have we done as Christians? We've prayed. We really have prayed. We've petitioned God. We've asked for His mercy. We've asked Him to stop this pandemic. We also prayed for the scientific community to come up with a vaccine. Well, thank God that prayer has been answered. We now have a vaccine that can slow the transmission of this virus, can protect us and protect our families and our loved ones. And so I would like to say to you that I am going to take that vaccine once it comes to my turn. My wife is going to. My family is going to take the vaccine. And I would like to encourage you to do the same. It's something that I believe God has given to us as a way of dealing with the spread of this pandemic. And it's something I would commend to you. And I would say to you, I'm going to take it, and so will my wife and our children. And I hope you also will take the vaccine when it comes to your turn.
Good evening, and my name is Russell Rook, and I have the privilege, the great honour, in fact, of welcoming Bishop Rose to our conversation this evening. You are joined tonight by church leaders from across the United Kingdom, from every denomination and group and churchmanship and family of churches, and they've joined precisely because they want to give hope through the vaccine. So with this audience of esteemed church leaders from across the UK, what is your message to them tonight?
To my sisters and brothers, colleagues, friends, I particularly first and foremost want to say a huge thank you for your engaging with this agenda. And, you know, it's important that we engage with this agenda in particular because, you know, as a Black woman myself, I am conscious that people from a Black and ethnic minority group are absolutely susceptible to COVID-19. And so it is vital for us to be out there in the community. We're about life. The Christian faith is about life, and this is about life. And so I just want to thank my colleagues for giving this the priority that it needs to have. And actually, I want to say thank you to our government ministers and to the host of NHS staff who have just thrown themselves at it, who have recognized that this is a big deal. This is about life and death. People have made so many sacrifices. So I want to say thanks to those who are making all of this possible, the help that they're getting from those in the armed forces as well. Just everyone who is, you know, volunteering themselves. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bishop Rose, I'm aware you mentioned there that for many of our churches, and from the Anglican Church, the Methodist Church we have here tonight, some of our mainstream denominations, and from what we would call Black majority and ethnic minority churches, in some of these communities where there are significant numbers of Black congregants or other people from minority ethnic groups, the question of the vaccine has been more challenging and more difficult. And so some of our guests here tonight are living in contexts where it's sometimes quite difficult to convey the hope of the vaccine because there's real opposition or reticence or concern around the vaccine. What do we say to those church leaders who are in those contexts where it's harder to give hope, where people do seem to have real worries and anxiety?
Yes, we should never give up. We understand those of us ourselves as Christian leaders who are from a Black majority or background. We know firsthand why we have the kind of resistance. We know that it is from a place of mistrust. We know that. We have lived that ourselves. But we also know we are intelligent enough as Christian leaders to know when to say to our people, you're right, just stay as you are, and when to say to them, you are right, we have this level of mistrust, but on this occasion, they are getting it right. So let's work with them. After all, so many of our minority ethnic people are leaders within the NHS. They are on the front line. And so I just think that it's important. Actually, I was speaking to my mother last night. She lives in America, spends half the time in America, half in Jamaica. And she's in America at the moment. And I asked if she'd had her jab. Of course, over there, they call it the shot. So she wasn't quite sure what I meant immediately. But my sister explained to her, and she said, oh, yes, but I'm not going back for the other. I said, excuse me? You're not going back for the other? And why is that? And she begins the whole story. I said, Mama, you stop there, right there. When they call you, you are going. And I could hear my sister in the background saying, she is definitely going when the call comes. You know, so that generation who have got reservations, we've got to encourage them and let them know that we want them to live. And actually, we also want to go back to having that relationship with our children and grandchildren, etc. And the one way for us to do that safely is to get the jab. We would never forgive ourselves if unconsciously we passed something on that led to the death or serious illness of someone whom we love or neighbors in our community. So we have a responsibility. I understand your hesitation, but we have a responsibility. And actually, I like to add that if the vaccine was good enough for Her Majesty, it is certainly good enough for me and for us.
Bishop Rose Hutton-Wilkin, thank you so much for joining us today from Dover for this event. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and we've really enjoyed your words of encouragement and inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bishop of Dover, and of course, Russell, for that. It's a huge honor, I reckon, tonight to welcome Nadeem Zahawi, the MP and the government minister, tonight joining us. I hope the minister is around with us tonight, because there are questions to ask the minister about tonight and to engage him in the conversation. Expecting and hoping that the minister is going to log in any minutes from now so that we can have a conversation with him. So let's, while we wait for the minister to join us, I've been told that he is here and is going to join us soon. So we're just waiting for him to log on so that we can catch up with him and get a question going. Is quite a lot of questions we have here to ask the Honorable Minister. And I reckon if you still have questions to ask when we start the second panel, please do not hesitate to put the questions out. So again, it's a huge honor to welcome Nadeem Zahawi, the MP, the government Vasin minister, joining us here tonight. So we await the minister to join us. Hopefully. Okay, Joe, you're obviously not the minister.
I am not the minister. No, we've just lost connection with him. But what we were wondering is whether or not we could have another opportunity, maybe to ask our first panel one or two more questions from the chat.
Okay, that would be fantastic. Yeah. So maybe I don't know whether maybe Dr. Vanessa could come back and then we could ask Dr. Vanessa one or two questions. Dr. Vanessa, do you want to highlight yourself?
Hi.
Oh, thanks for having you back, Dr. Vanessa. Right. So some people might have having a kind of a side effect of having taken the vaccine. For example, I'll tell you my own experience. I took the vaccine on Sunday. My arm has been aching since then. And they kind of feel a little bit of a lethargy or like a dead weight after that. Why is that? And how long is that going to be in your body before you get out of it?
So, and yes, and I can confirm that I had very similar symptoms when I had the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine I had. So you have a local site reaction, which can happen at the site is where the injection went, and you can have the tenderness in there around the muscle and tissues. That can normally start like a day after you have the injection. So at the time you have it, you're fine, and then a day or so later it can come. So I always tell people that, so not to be anxious that there was a gap. And then that discomfort can last for a couple of days. And sometimes the longest that I've really seen people discuss it is about a week. And in terms of the symptoms as well, there is lethargy, perhaps joint pains. Sometimes we experience like cold or flu in different ways, like just feeling quite tired and run down. And those symptoms can come as well after a couple of days. They also are short-lived as well, so generally less than a week. So I always say to people that there can be side effects, but these are short-term and short-lived, and not to be concerned.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to bring Dr. Adeaga, if you are here, can you just highlight yourself? There's another question which I'd like to ask you, Dr. Shola Adeaga, if you can highlight yourself and unmute, please, if you're still there. Yeah, Doc. Yeah, thanks. Doc, some people ask this question, some very good Christians, they ask this question that this is about the end of the world coming because this is 666. Once you get this thing, you're going to be a zombie. Somebody's going to be controlling you from somewhere. And then this is the end of the world coming because this is what is in the book of Revelation. Can you unpack that a little bit for some of us who are not very good Christians?
I don't know about not being very good Christians, but it's what I said earlier on about how a lot of negative news travels so well quickly and affects people. But if you look at it in the context of the Bible, first of all, the mark of the beast that the Bible refers to having marks on the forehead, but particularly. And in this instance, like has been said over the weeks of talking about the vaccine, this is a liquid entity that's been injected into the intramuscular, into the arm, into the muscles, that very quickly gets absorbed into the body. So it's not anywhere representative of what, in my opinion, the Bible describes as the mark of the beast. Secondly, as has been said, the part of the concern is that people are saying you're going to be controlled in one way or the other. Again, as has been said, this is a liquid entity that gets absorbed into the system. We've described how it works. It stimulates the immune system to produce antibodies. How does the body get controlled by that? Beggars my imagination. And I think the third thing that I would say is that, like, I was listening to a panel a few weeks ago that with all the conspiracy theories, if people wanted to control or if people wanted to get information in terms of where people are, guess what? They could easily do so with your mobile phone. They don't need, you don't need to go through the expensive rigors of creating vaccines in order to do that. But I think, Revi, to say that let's just be careful we read the Bible correctly, interpret the Bible correctly, and not just take information that is being put out there on social media. I hope that helps.
Yeah, Dr. Bola Olabi, if you want to highlight yourself, I'm going to ask you this question. I know that from the NHS perspective, you all have people registered in their clinic, in all the places that people can come in and take the vaccine. But then there are people who are undocumented. Illegal immigrants, we call them refugees, or people all over the places. If they don't get vaccinated, we'll still continue to have this death toll. How can we help such people? Bearing in mind that majority of our African and Afro-Caribbean churches and migrant churches are full of people who are undocumented. No, not full, few percentages of them. How do we help such people?
Thank you. So the NHS launched a GP registration campaign in the last 2 weeks. And this campaign is deliberately to encourage people like you've just described, other communities at the margins, whether that is homeless people, traveler, gypsy, Roma communities, people who, for whatever reason, whether their immigration status or whatever, there is a massive campaign underway for people to be registered with the GP so that they can access the vaccination. And at the point of registration, we're not asking you, for documents or anything like that. We've got the GP registration is open campaign, and I'll put some links into the chat box so that people can follow that. But I would really encourage people, please go and register. Our job is to provide you safe healthcare. That is our job. That is what we're there to do. And if we didn't consider this to be an important issue, we wouldn't have put the huge amount of resource that has gone into the GP registration campaign that went live recently. So do please go along and be registered. I'll put some more information in the box.
Thank you ever so much. While the minister waiting for the minister to log back on, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Joe Frost to take to pick up the questions with the other church leaders while I wait for the ministers for Vasin to log on. Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Yemi. So we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to hear from church leaders on the ground, how different churches are tackling some of the challenges, both of the longer term pandemic impact, but also around the COVID vaccine rollout. So it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome now Pastor Yinka from the Baptist Union, Dr. Richard GP, Chair of the BMA-GP Committee in England, Chair of the GPC UK from the Methodist Church, and from Pastor Krisha from the Life Community Organisation. And just because we haven't seen him enough, Doc is coming back in as well. Good evening to you all. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation this evening. Yinka, I want to start with you. What's happening in the Baptist Union at the moment? What are some of the challenges you're facing? And tell us a little bit about how your churches are engaging, both in the vaccine rollout, but also some of the wider impacts of the pandemic.
Yeah, Joe, thank you for having me on this evening. It's just a real privilege to hear. And I really did appreciate what the bishop said early on, because I thought what she had to say about on this occasion, we understand that it's not just ignorance or conspiracy theories. There are real issues of trust. But on this occasion, actually, it's not about historical issues. It's not about the judicial issues or academic disparities. This is a real issue that's affecting Black people. And we believe they've got it right on this occasion. In terms of the Baptist churches, I think we've been engaging all throughout this time with authentic reflection. In other words, we've helped our colleagues, because every Baptist church is independent. We've got over 2,000 of them, and we've helped every, if you like, church consider some of the issues around not engaging with the government, not engaging with the issues that are affecting society. Because above all else, we are a kingdom people. You know, despite our cultural diversity, you know, we love our neighbor. We've been encouraging our churches to reflect on the impact of not following government guidelines, of not what happens to our neighbors, the very people we're trying to reach. You know, they start dying. So our churches have gone over and beyond government advice. In fact, some of our churches have not met at all, at huge cost and sacrifice to those communities. So we believe that the message that the government is trying to put out is right, and we really appreciate this particular session that we're having tonight, because the Black community particularly are suffering the most. Black and Asian community are suffering more than any other. And so this kind of authentic reflection, and I use the word authentic reflection in there because it's important to listen to what people have got to say, is vital.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yinka. Krisha, if I can come to you next. We've heard a lot about the challenges around promoting or engaging in conversation around the vaccine, even some of the questions in the chat around when does persuasion or encouragement tip into propaganda. How are your community responding to this conversation, and what opportunities are you seeing for church leaders to engage here?
So mainly I like to talk about the challenges. The challenges that we are facing, our community is facing, is again the trust. Because when we talk about the vaccine, first question they ask is, have you taken the vaccine? And what are the, outcome and all the rest of it. Secondly, the challenges we are facing is language. There are people, they want to know in their own language to understand. So in the churches, in social media, we are just putting all these messages, talks. So we are reaching out, but mainly it works everywhere is 1-to-1. So I had my jab yesterday, so I'm being wise to give few days before I say, I got it. It works. So to answer the questions. And also I think the leaders have to come forward and talk about this more.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Dr. Richard, we've heard questions around the safety of the vaccine. Is it safe? Does it only protect us? How can taking it help others? What do you say to some of those questions being asked?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak, Joe. I think what we've already heard very eloquently from a number of the early panelists is this is a safe and effective vaccine. And it's not only going to protect us, it's going to benefit those we love as well, our neighbour, our family and friends, those whom we love. We need to be protecting them as well as ourselves. And by limiting the transmission of this deadly infection that's having such a devastating impact on so many people, we will save lives. And there's some early evidence coming through now from the first doses that have been given right across the UK and elsewhere in the world as well, including Israel, where there's very good evidence developing that we're actually starting to reduce transmission as well. So this not only saves lives, but it reduces the risk of transmission of this infection from one person to another. So this is not only a safe and effective vaccine for the individual, it's also going to protect your family and friends as well. So it's really important. If you do nothing else, take the vaccine for those you love as much as protecting yourself.
Thank you so much. Doc, because we haven't asked you enough questions already yet this evening, I'd love to come to you. It's my understanding Jesus House is about to become a vaccine centre. Would you like to share a little bit about why that's happened and also how you went about it?
Okay, thanks, Joe. I think just to take a few steps back, as far back as 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, as was said earlier on, we realized that one of the important things we could do as a church was not to dismiss people's concerns and hesitancy, but on the other hand, to bring credible information, accurate information, just so people could make an informed choice. So we started that journey a few weeks ago. We've had workshops where we had medical panelists, had people, give people the opportunity to ask questions. And it's been quite, what's the right word now? It's been quite encouraging, the way that people have responded to the information that they got, a lot of reassurance that has come from those workshops and some interviews that Pastor Agu did with some experts. But then we felt that a natural progression from that, because what people are looking for is not just answers, but also reassurance, like Dr. Bola said earlier, trusting in their leaders. And as you heard Pastor Agu say in his video, that when his time comes, he will take the vaccine, because people ask that. We felt a natural progression was to not just give information, but just as well demonstrate to people that we are doing what we say we believe in. Also to create a safe environment for people who were skeptical to be able to come into a church environment, for example, and say, I've seen my leaders take the vaccine, we're happy to do that. So that's what's led us to this part of the journey. And thanks to Dr. Bola and the rest of the team, a lot of work that's gone on over the last few weeks. We actually had a site visit today, and we're hoping that from Sunday, Jesus House becomes, just to clarify the terminology, because they said to me today to specifically clarify that it is a pop-up site for vaccination, not a vaccination center. They're not, a vaccination center is somewhere where you go every day, thousands of people are being vaccinated. A pop-up site, like we're going to start with, is you come in on specific days, Sundays. We invite people to come in, a certain cohort of people, to get their vaccination. So we're hoping that will kick off from this Sunday.
That's brilliant. To the whole panel now, slightly unprepared, but I've got the question anyway. This campaign is part of the wider Give Hope campaign in the run-up to Lent. And it has been an amazing opportunity, not only to talk about the eternal hope that we have and we look forward to as we look forward to Easter, but also some of the practical ways that the church has been able to share hope in this season. What have you seen? Where have been the pockets of hope that you have seen, both in your churches and in your communities? Would anyone like to share a story of encouragement? Richard.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many examples of people really stepping up and getting involved in this. From those who are already working in the health and social care setting, being willing to do additional sessions because they are so committed to getting the vaccine rolled out as quickly as possible. People stepping forward as volunteers, people who were previously healthcare professionals coming back in and working sort of because they really wanted to ensure that their skills were utilised. And even we've seen in our local area when we had really bad snow, the whole community coming out and digging out the health centres of car parks so that people could safely get into the vaccine centre. And those who couldn't do that, praying for those people who were there doing those tasks. These simple things make such a big difference and enable people to have confidence that the vaccine programme is going to deliver for them in their community.
Thank you. Yinka.
Yeah, we've had one of our church members has done something extraordinary. It's gone to 35 locations across the country, which is a telephone service for people stuck at home who've not been able to get out. For some of these elderly people, it's been the only lifeline that they've had, where they've had a telephone call from people in the churches, 35 centers across the whole country. And what we find in all this is that the church is the hope. The church does bring hope. And when pastors are being asked to talk rationally with their church members and listen to their concerns, nevertheless, we're good at this stuff. We can pastor our people and help shepherd them in the right direction. Pastors have got a critical part to play in this. So we've seen stories like that of people starting up ministries that have fed the poor, that have fed the hungry, that have gone out, those who are living out on the streets and have nowhere to go. I think there's some huge stories out of all of this that the community is going to look back at the church and say, we're happy to listen to what else you've got to say because you've cared for us in this time.
Brilliant. Krisha, final word from you.
So during the first lockdown, we delivered about 250 Easter eggs to the local community. So mainly, as Doctor said, it's Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, Indians, from ethnic background. So this year, again, our target is to deliver 250 Easter eggs. Probably after this session, I'm thinking of with the Easter egg to give new life with a small ethnic language like Tamil to say, help yourself and get vaccinated or something like that.
Oh, it's lovely. Krisha, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for sharing this evening. It is such an encouragement to hear from you all. We're going to hear from the minister in just one moment, but ahead of that, as you've been hearing this evening, and as we've been sharing, so many of our senior leaders and our church leaders have been speaking out around the vaccine over the last month, and a number have come together to make a Church United video, which you're about to see as its premiere this evening. This video is available for you to share and to use within your church communities. If you want any of the resources that you've seen this evening, any of the videos or assets that have come up, you just need to go to yourneighbour.org and sign up, register there, and you'll be able to access all of the videos. But we're going to show the video now.
This pandemic, the COVID-19 disease, has caused terrible loss on a global, national, and local level.
We understand some have fears and anxieties, concerns and confusion.
As Christians, we are called to reach out with good news.
COVID has exploited and increased the existing inequalities in our society.
And while our churches may look different, there is one thing we are all agreed upon.
To ask that you take the vaccine seriously.
This is the best and fastest route out of this terrible pandemic.
We have a responsibility to give hope.
We have to do everything in our power to give hope and stop COVID.
One thing that we can do to ensure this is by doing our credible research, seeking professional advice, debunking the myths.
Don't let misinformation put you or your loved ones at risk.
We understand that COVID vaccines are new and some people have questions.
But then that should not stop us from engaging with the gift of science that God has given unto us. we shouldn't allow more death.
Infections and deaths have affected all of our church families and every family in the UK.
The vaccines have been robustly tested by some of the world's best scientists and healthcare experts.
If invited by the NHS to get the vaccine, please, please, and please take it.
When it gets to my turn, I'll certainly be taking it.
I am going to take that vaccine once it comes to my turn.
I will certainly be taking it.
Our churches have the opportunity to continue that healing ministry.
As churches, we know our communities. We need to spread this message of hope.
Protect yourself.
Protect your family.
Protect your church community.
Protect our wider community.
Okay, thank you ever so much for that. What a great video we have. We have the Honorable Minister with us right now. It's a huge, huge honor. It's a huge, huge honor to welcome Nadeem Zahawi, the MP, the government Vasin minister. Minister Zahawi, it is such a delight to have you with us tonight. Welcome. How are you today?
I am well, Yemi. Thank you very much for having me, and I apologize for running. It's been missed this because being here is wonderful and exemplary, and that video I want to make sure we have literally available in every part of the deployment, every vaccination center. If I can have someone have it on their smartphone just to share with people and get them to share it with their families as well, because it really is absolutely the right messaging, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here tonight. We're really grateful for that. Now, my first question to you is that vaccine uptake across certain communities is concerning, particularly the African, the Afro-Caribbean, and some Asian communities and other ethnic minorities. What is government really doing to help communities increase confidence in this vaccine?
You're absolutely right. So we're very lucky in many ways in that the United Kingdom has one of the highest levels of vaccine positivity in the world. If you look at the latest polling, the research from the Office for National Statistics, the ONS, it has us at 85% of people saying, adults saying they will take the vaccine or very likely to take the vaccine. I think another survey from Ipsos Mori had us at 89%. But, and there is a but here, the 11% or the 15%, according to the ONS, that are vaccine hesitant skew heavily towards Black and Afro-Caribbean communities and, of course, other Asian communities as well, which is why it's so important that we focus on these communities, because we don't want to leave any community behind. Because the virus will look for a home, and when the adult population has been vaccinated, if we hit 85 or 89%, we're now running at north of 90% in the top four categories, the over 75s and the over 80. But if there is a community that is unprotected, and by definition that community is closely knit and tight community, the virus will go. We can't allow that to happen. We can't be bystanders, allow that to happen, which is why I launched an uptake strategy on the 13th of February that addresses this issue that through collaboration with local government, with church leaders, with faith leaders from all faiths and none as well, with community leaders, and of course, giving them the tools in different languages, translating every piece of information. Your brilliant video said, you should seek out that information to satisfy yourself that the vaccines are safe for you, for your family, and for your community. And of course, creating a hub so we can all share best practice. We can share the work that the churches are doing where we're creating these pop-up vaccination centers, which I look forward to hopefully witnessing that are being created in churches. And of course, I saw it firsthand in Hackney with the Hatzola ambulance service, with the Jewish Haredi Hasidic community taking the vaccine on 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday night. Was wonderful, really wonderful to see. And many, many more examples. And we want to share those examples and, of course, continue to communicate the message through not only a national advertising program that you will see, but also regionally and then locally, hyper-locally, with communities and community champions. And we have a big program of community champions that we've put £25 million almost behind as well. So a big drive, because we want to make it convenient. A lot of the evidence suggests that it's access. People want to go somewhere that is convenient to them and that they trust. Their church is a place of trust, a place where they feel happy and confident to go. And that could be the way we deliver this. That's what we want to do, working with many of you here on the school. And I thank you again for giving me this opportunity, sir.
Thank you very much. Another question is, many people on this platform today, majority of them are church leaders, and I'm sure they'll be excited to hear what you are saying tonight. What role do you think the church leaders have to play, as well as individuals, in making sure that this vaccine is well given to particularly those who are vulnerable?
I think in many ways, church leaders have been doing incredible work, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you are all doing to get the message out, because I know many of you have been doing a lot of work. You know, it's not just about tonight, but I would say the most important thing is make sure you have the information available to you. Anything that you need, please get in touch with us. We are ready and waiting to help with any form of communication or any questions that you think need answering. Because if you are confident and if you feel you have yourself asked the questions and received the answers from whether it's doctors, nurses, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, we held sessions with them, and they spoke to people who are practitioners, doctors in the health service, who are Black and Afro-Caribbean, who are Bangladeshi, who are from different Asian communities. So when you have the confidence, you will be able to share that with your congregation for those who have questions. If they hear from you, then that is a much more powerful message if they hear it just from their television advertising, or dare I say from a politician like me.
Now, my last question to you, Minister, is this. I guess many people have asked you, and you also know the way people will imagine politicians when they speak, but I really want you to speak from the bottom of your heart to church leaders here, to people who are here, who are hesitant about the vaccine, and those who are actually engaging with the communities. I want you to speak from your heart to us tonight. What would you like to say as your last statement?
So what I would say to everybody here is vaccines save about 2 to 3 million lives every year. You know, my family hails from the Middle East, and the Middle East is full of conspiracy theories and all sorts of cultural and historical wrongs against many communities. But what I would say to you, that the vaccine program, whether it's the Pfizer or AstraZeneca, has been rigorously tested. There were no corners cut. Every phase, every trial has been followed. The difference is because of the pandemic that is global, governments have effectively given as much support financially to the scientists, to the regulators to do their work. So they were able to parallel, rather than going sequentially, phase 1, waiting, phase 2, and then phase 3, we were able to parallel the studies so that we could get to a place where we can safely approve vaccines. And so these vaccines are safe. They are good for you because they protect you. We've just seen really encouraging data from Scotland yesterday that demonstrate that both Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccine offer very high protection against serious infection and hospitalization, which is really important. And of course, they protect your family and your community. And I guess from the bottom of my heart, I would say thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for giving up your time tonight. And please doing what you do, because you are incredibly important. We want your congregation protected because, as I said, the vaccine will attempt to survive. And if there are people who are unprotected, it will find them and it will infect them. And I cannot be a bystander and allow that to happen, nor can you. So please, let's work together and make sure every community is protected.
Minister Zahawi, I cannot say how much I'm grateful for taking time to come and have a conversation with us here tonight. Very grateful. Thank you ever so much. And what we can do as our church leaders here is to pray that God will continue to bless the work of your hand, and then we will see this pandemic go. So thank you ever so much. And be rest assured, we'll do everything possible within us to make sure we work together and see the difference in our community. Thank you ever so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Wow. Well, a big thank you to the minister for for being with us here tonight. As we are running towards the end of tonight, is that time of the evening to look at the Vax Chat video. Over the last week, your neighbors have been working with behavioral scientists and NHS staff to provide resources for churches to give hope through the vaccine. So we started the process by interviewing church leaders across the UK. What we learned was that the best way to help people who may feel reticent or concerned about the vaccine is not to preach to them, but rather to take a kind of constructive conversation. This kind of conversation gives people the confidence to ask their question and hope they need to receive the vaccination. So to help church leaders and church members to have this conversation, we made this short film, and guess what? It's called Give Hope. Sit back for this very short Give Hope video.
Hello. I wanted to talk to you about the Give Hope campaign from yourneighbour.org.
In these difficult days, we're encouraging everyone
to give hope to their communities by promoting the COVID vaccines. Giving hope is simple.
Just starts with a conversation, and all you need to do is remember that one word. H-O-P-E, hope. The H stands for have the conversation.
Let's call it a Vax Chat. This is a kind and constructive conversation
where we listen in love
and above all else demonstrate how much we care for one another.
O stands for offer clear and accurate information.
If question comes up that you cannot answer, don't worry or make it up, but point people to an expert who can help.
Whether that be a GP, a pharmacist, local church or faith leader.
P is for provide practical support. Some people are missing out on the vaccine
because they've missed their letter,
struggle to book an appointment,
or they can't travel easily to a vaccine centre.
You can provide the help they need to get the vaccine, and that decision could save their life.
E stands for engage others and share.
Basically, give hope by repeating this conversation with as many of your friends, family and neighbours as often as you can.
So once again, have the conversation, offer clear and accurate information, provide practical support and engage as many people as possible.
Thanks for listening. Please join the conversation and give hope to your community.
Thank you ever so much. As we bring this program to the end for tonight, I want to thank all of you for staying with us, but I want all our speakers to come back on the screen so that you can see each one of us as we give our last departing message. Dr. Richard, Dr. Bola, Vanessa, Joe, Dr. Bola, just come online, and as we kind of say our last call to action to people. This is where we have a last word to tell people what they should do. So I'm going to start first with you. Yinka, what's the last word you'd like to say to people tonight? What do you have to say?
Well, let's trust our medical professionals. We go to them for when we have babies, when we need operations, when we've got serious problems. They're people that we can trust. They're telling us this is safe. Let's trust them.
Dr. Richard?
The vaccine is safe and effective. It's an answer to prayer. Please take it if you're offered it.
Dr. Vanessa, go for it.
All I can say is just to emphasize it, that we don't take it lightly, this opportunity to come and speak to you, and we don't take our roles lightly as doctors. So we have looked at the data, we believe it's safe and effective, and we really want to just break the chain of COVID. So please.
Dr. Adiaga.
If you'll permit me 2 half words to make into 1 word.
Please, take your time. So take your time.
Okay, the first half word, I mean, particularly from a religious point of view, I was just reminded of that scripture in Hosea chapter 4, where God says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And it's important that we get knowledge. I was just looking on the chat box and there was a question about trust in social media and all that. The challenge with social media is that people just post things without substantiating. And unfortunately, they go very wide. People believe them. So just get knowledge. Don't rely on social media. Get expert knowledge. That's my first thing. And the second thing is talking about knowledge. Any medical person will tell you that in medicine, there's what's called risk versus benefit. Any medication that is out there, whether it's paracetamol, whether it's vaccine, measles, some of the things that you mentioned, the things that we take normally, that we take for granted, antibiotics, medications that we all are prescribed by our GPs, all of those things are put out on the market on the basis of risk versus benefit. Basically, what you're saying is the benefit of taking this medication far outweighs any side effects that might come. So I'm saying my last word is, guys, COVID is a nasty, dangerous, deadly virus from the pits of hell. You don't want to risk being infected by it and then, God forbid, that anything else. Like Pastor Inka just said, I think the vaccine is the answer to prayer. And the benefit of taking the vaccine far outweigh any potential risks that honestly are very mild compared to contracting the virus. That's my long last word.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adiaga. Dr. Bola, your last word, please.
I just want to say thank you so much again for having me here, and to the church leaders for putting this event together. My final word is to say this. If you catch the virus, there is a likelihood that you may get well, but there is also the likelihood that you may die, and there is the likelihood that you may end up with long COVID. If you take the vaccine, you significantly reduce your risk of catching severe disease, and you will significantly reduce your risk of dying from this infection and causing avoidable heartbreak and misery to the people that you love. Nobody here has been paid to be here tonight. We're not working to some sort of rota or trying to get some particular number. We are here because we genuinely care. We are here because we genuinely want to play our part to make sure that you and your loved ones and our community continue to be safe. Please do your bit. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. And then Joe.
Thank you, Yemi, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening. And thank you for those of you who have been watching. I really hope that you have found it helpful and informative. We want to say that if you need any further support in your church, in your community, in your denomination, Your Neighbour is here to help. You can find so many of the resources that you've seen this evening and extra resources to help you navigate some of the challenges that we're facing at this time at yourneighbour.org. Please do sign up there and get the help that you need because it's all there. What we'd also like to ask in this moment is if you are willing to lend us your voice. We are creating a statement of support at this time, signed by church leaders all across the UK, declaring and signing to say that they are with us in this message of encouragement around the vaccine. You can see it here on the screen. It's simply saying that we're supporting the rollout of the vaccine. We encourage people to find out the facts, get accurate and helpful information, and that when it's our turn, we're gonna take the vaccine. If you are interested in adding your voice and signing the statement of support, the link's in the chat. You'll be able to find it there. You can sign up to the wider campaign and engage in Give Hope. And we'd love to encourage you to do that, especially in this season of Lent, as we look forward to the hope that comes at Easter. I'm going to hand over now to Russ Rook, who's going to close us out.
Well, this has been wonderful. Normally I have to work really hard on these evenings, chairing these events, and I had to do nothing tonight, but just simply to sit back and enjoy just phenomenal content. I mean, my brain is so full of tips, of advice, of all kinds of really powerful and inspirational words to encourage, to challenge, to equip. It's been brilliant. So thank you so much, Yemi and Joe, for hosting us so well with all the kind of things that have come your way that we weren't quite expecting with timings and the minister delayed. Thank you to all of our experts, our church leaders, our doctors. You have been brilliant. And I just want to say, please do go to yourneighbour.org. Please do sign up. We will keep sending you resources as we develop more videos. There are toolkits there to be used with your local church. There's how to have a hope, a vax chat, how to use that hope conversation. There's things that you can use with your community, with your staff, with your volunteers. And we will be telling more stories over these next 6 weeks of how the church is helping in all kind of areas, not just with vaccination, but supporting those in debt, helping people into employment. Next week, we'll be talking about how we support vulnerable families and vulnerable children. And we hope you'll join us over these next 6-7 weeks, which was going to be a really exciting journey as we see what the church is doing to bring hope through the COVID crisis, and hopefully all get on board so that we are doing these things in our community. And we've heard so much from you tonight about what you're doing in your community, both our panelists and our audience. So thank you so much for being here. Please sign up at yourneighbour.org. We're going to play out with one video, which is a rather beautiful film of all we're trying to do over these next 6 and 7 weeks. And all it's left for me to say is thank you for being here tonight. Good night, God bless, and give hope.
Our Heavenly Father says, love your neighbor, and except your love for him, there should be no love that is greater. An historic crisis needed an empowered response, and because the church is the Lord's bride, we united with others and replied as we distributed more than 5 million meals per month worldwide. It was our churches in unity that made a global impact through serving in each community. We stayed true and accepted the fight in order to become the salt and light. So now it's only right we share our delight in honoring you, the church. We celebrate you. But may I humbly remind you that we still have a lot more to do. Another season to cling together and push through. As it doesn't stop here, but it advances. God's love enhances as we continue to help change more circumstances. So please, don't take your position in this mission for granted. As our Heavenly Father says that 2 are better than 1. And we're going to need every single one of you to get this job done. So will you continue to help those who are in need and pour into youth projects so the next generation can succeed? Will you continue to love others as you love yourself by donating to those struggling with mental health? And will you continue to help your neighbor find stability by sowing into their skills of employability? You see, this is much more than just helping nations. We now have an opportunity to bless future generations and show that even through a second wave, we still believe in a God who is able to save. So come on, don't give up, give hope.